It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome into the Sports Blitz on a Wednesday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios. Lots of sports to talk about today. We appreciate you joining us, taking time out of your busy day to take part in the show. Those of you that are new to the show, we talk local sports, high school, college, in the state, and then national sports. We're going everywhere, and Weldon, we've got plenty of stuff to hit today.
We do. Final Four is creeping up on us. Saturday is the day. So many storylines to do with the Final Four. I mean, you look at the matchups. You've got Kentucky, the young Bucks, the young Stars going up against the Wisconsin team and their precise execution. Bo Ryan, one of the best coaches in the country. And on the other side, you've got Florida, number one overall seed, poised for a national championship. They've got a lot of seniors against a UConn team that nobody thought would be here. So, we talked a little bit about it on Monday, but, now that the week's going on more and more, we'll hit the Final Four even more. Big news in the NFL, Deshaun Jackson. We know he was cut by the Philadelphia Eagles a few days ago. He has now found a home with the Washington Redskins, and we'll give you some details on that contract, what we think. RG3's got another toy to play with. I've got some decisions to make too, Mark, because I got Nick Foles in fantasy. And so, I got to see what we're going to do at receiver. Macklin, Riley Cooper had a breakout year, but I don't know. I got to see because I got Nick Foles, and it's always about what my fantasy team is doing.
Is this a keeper league? You got Nick Foles as one of your keepers?
Yeah, I got Nick Foles and Andrew Luck, yeah.
Not terrible, terrible.
I got to make a decision.
Well, I'm not a huge Deshaun Jackson fan, so we'll probably differ a little bit on what we'll talk about with him here in a little bit, but that's good. Jimmy Dykes, talk a little bit more about him. I talked with the Woodshed guys yesterday about Jimmy Dykes, and I actually get to listen to a little bit more of Jimmy Dykes' introduction press conference and some of the things that he said that he wanted to do, and he made a couple good points that I felt like were entirely too good for the Woodshed show. I got to save them and bring them here too. So, I'm just playing. Those guys did a good job, and they had me on to talk sports. So, I mean, who better? They couldn't get you on such short notice, so they got me, and I sat over here and talked sports with them for a little bit. So we'll talk Jimmy Dykes in a little bit. Yeah, the spring football. There's a lot of news coming out of the University of Arkansas. Of course, most of the practices are closed. They're about to come to an open scrimmage here pretty soon. But so we'll talk a little bit about what we've heard, and then. There's just some other sports information in the Hog Talk segment that you'll be interested to catch part in here in just a little bit. But we will start real quickly with our local sports. Look, we've got the Brightest Stars Banquet. That's going to be the biggest deal this spring. May 29th, Russellville High School. We've made you aware of it before. I'm about to be announcing the nominees. Hopefully today I'll be able to put all that together and put all the nominees from all the sports, from all the schools together and show you who has been nominated. Gonna, make a big deal of it, hopefully, and, we're still looking for business advertisements for those that would like to sponsor an award, sponsor the banquet, just help throw some support behind the banquet so that we can continue this. The money that is donated, the money that is paid in sponsorship will go to keep this banquet going. It's not going to be a money maker by any means, but we want to make sure each one of these awards is sponsored. And Weldon, we've talked a bunch about how doing this awards banquet is just it's good for the big sports because they get all the awards anyway. It's also good for some of those kids who they're swimming or they're playing golf or they're playing tennis and they don't really get a whole lot of recognition. For them to get that chance to come in with the football players and with the basketball players and to be nominated for an award that's just as prestigious, just as nice. It's not. I mean, there's not going to be any distinguishing between the football award and the tennis award. It's all going to be the same. They're all going to be on equal footing. I think that's going to be a really cool night. It
is, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This is an awards banquet that it's different than probably what you've seen or heard before. I mean, I'm aware, Mark, and I'm pretty sure you're aware. I mean, it's not the first ever banquet to be done to honor local athletes, but you still have to understand it's completely different. I've seen from afar and even up close to a degree what some of the other banquets have done and award ceremonies have done in the past, and we haven't put on the Brightest Stars banquet yet, but based on the preparation and the work that everybody's put into it, it's a different animal than those events we've seen in the past. Italian Gardens is catering the event. It's going to be nothing but first class. You're going to feel like, Mark, as you said, if you're an athlete who plays, we won't say a lesser sport, but a sport that doesn't get as much recognition. If you're playing in one of those sports, you're going to feel, at least for one night, like you're with the basketball players, with the football players who do get all the recognition and receive all those awards. So it's really a big-time opportunity, and I've said this before too. The peer-to-peer interaction's a big deal. It's a big deal to go see players and athletes who you may not get to see or interact with during your respective seasons, but you get to acknowledge them and you get to, kind of say, hey, you had a great year. Thanks. So did you, back and forth. And the coaches see each other a lot for different things, but because of busy schedules, you don't always get to see one another. You get to exchange, hey, remember that play we ran against you and this situation the third quarter, remember this out of bounds play we ran here or there. You just get to exchange notes and exchange pleasantries, and it's really a good time, and you get to see it firsthand. You get access to coaches and players the way you haven't before, and $25 is really not much of a price to pay to get that opportunity.
And, for those that don't know, what we're doing, Aaron Peters from KNWA, he hosts Razorback Nation, big local sports supporter, just a big sports fan, and obviously he does this for a living, so he's very good at what he does. He's going to be our MC, and like Weldon said, we're going to make a big deal out of this event. It's going to be up to 600 people that are going to be able to be at the actual banquet. The 3 finalists. Now, I'm taking this ballot, compiling it, and sending it to the coaches. They're going to vote on their own sport, but for a player from another school, the 3 players that get the most votes will be finalists. The 3 finalists will get a free ticket for them, a free ticket for both parents, so that's 3 tickets right there, and then a free ticket for their head coach. That's 4 tickets for 3 different athletes, and in every sport. So there's a lot of tickets that are already spoken for. That those tickets, we don't make any money from. We're giving those away, and then you got family and friends and extended family and other teammates and just anybody from the community that wants to come in and participate and watch can show up for the banquet. And like Weldon said, $25 for an event like this, it'd be well worth it if one of my best friends was standing up there being awarded or at least even nominated. It's just like an ESPYs type thing where you're not going to know who wins on the night of the event. You're going to have to see who got the most votes. So I'm looking forward to just a little bit of different and a little bit of fun. I was talking to some coaches about it yesterday, and I'm sure that from year 1 to year 2, there will be some tweaks, some improvements, hopefully some additions even to the schedule. But we're going to make things as accommodating as we can, as fun, and just as good an event as possible. We hope that everybody's done with their sport by May 29th. That was the original plan, that they'd be out of school, but with all the snow and everything, they're going to be in school probably still. But that may help. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, and it's certainly something we've seen before. I remember a few years ago, and I don't know if they've changed this, but you had graduation interfering with track and field events. You had track athletes who had to have separate graduations, kind of a strange deal. But that's the way it kind of goes with those things. But in the end, it's going to be a great event, like we said, Mark. Some of these athletes may go on to do bigger and better things, or they will, scholarships and what have you. And then others, they won't. This will be it for them. This will be their last hurrah on a big stage, being acknowledged for what they've done from an athletic standpoint. So that makes it worth it too. Definitely.
We hope to give away a nice little scholarship to someone, and I'm telling you, I've already got some submissions for the scholarship that it's kind of dusty in here type thing. When you read it, you're just like, man, this kid really deserves this scholarship. Somebody who, we made the stipulation that we don't want you to nominate as a coach a player that you think is a really good player who's going to go on to the next level and play that sport. A golfer who's got a golf scholarship, or a basketball player or a football player who, he's obviously the best football player in the area. Well, he's got a football scholarship. So we were asking for an athlete that embodied team spirit, embodied a great teammate, and embodied a great student athlete, but is going to go to the next level but not play a sport and may need the financial help. And it's not going to be like a 4-year scholarship unless somebody just steps up and says, here, I'll pay X amount of dollars for a full scholarship. But it's just going to be a one-time scholarship, but I think it's going to be a really cool thing for somebody who really deserves it to be able to, we'll read their submission letter, and we'll read about, what kind of person they are. And I've seen a couple of these so far that I've just been like, wow, it's going to be hard to decide who wins this scholarship, and it's going to be really cool to be able to stand there on that night and say, congratulations to the winner of this scholarship. Here's a little bit about them. It's going to be a really cool event, and that's just one cool part of it.
Well, I mean, that and the scholarship makes a huge difference. I mean, look, you're talking to somebody who on a daily basis sees kids have to make financial decisions and paying for school. I feel like I'm a coach part-time and I'm a financial aid officer half the time, trying to be creative with finding funding for kids, and it helps, whether it's $600 here or there, or what's a little scholarship here or a grant here or there. All that stuff makes a difference. It'll have a huge impact, and more so than that, it's just a big deal to just be acknowledged. If you're a player of that role that you just described, Mark, you probably didn't make all state. You probably didn't get recognized for this. You got close though.
I was JV all state.
6-man,
sure.
3-point specialist.
Yeah.
Oh, man, Matty, always the tallest man in the pickup game with shooting fadeaways. But it is something where you probably didn't get all these accolades, but you are going to be acknowledged on that stage, even though you are all state, Mr. 1,000-yard rusher, 4,000-yard passer, all this stuff. You're still acknowledged too. So it's a great, great award. I think it's a great idea to give it away.
Well, May 29th, Russellville High School. You can get your tickets today at rivervalleyleader.com. Just search Brightest Stars Banquet or find one of the little ads on the side, and you can purchase your ticket via PayPal, or you can just call us up at 968 News. We'd love to take your call. I'm looking forward to announcing those nominees as quickly as I can get it done. Also in local sports, before we hit a break, April 5th, that's this Saturday, 5 o'clock at Atkins High School, the Atkins-Pottsville alumni basketball game. Talked with Chris Burke last week about it. You can go to rivervalleyleader.com and find that interview on the Sports Blitz. Just search Chris Burke or search Sports Blitz and go back to last Wednesday. And you can hear us talk with Chris Burke about the event. Going to be a fun night, Weldon, where they're playing old man basketball and a little bit younger man basketball, and then some ladies basketball. 30 and over at 5 o'clock, the women's game to follow, and then the 29 and under game in men's action as the nightcap. Some fun little giveaways in between, some door prizes and some chances. Minute to win it, basketball stuff. I'm going to go out there and win a couple $1,000 probably, and then come back and brag about it on Monday's show. But it's going to be a fun event.
I hope you do. Yeah. I wish you the best in that.
I've been practicing well.
Do you even need to practice? I
No.
mean, come on, you know.
That's just unfair now that I've practiced.
Yeah, but it's going to be a big time event. It was something that was great last year. It's funny how ideas sort of come together. It's not always about something that's been brainstormed and put together. Sometimes it's about sitting up, thinking of a need for something. You'd be like, you know what? It'd be a good idea to do this and that. You get a few people in on it, a few like-minded individuals. You go out, you get other people in on it, and all of a sudden it just blossoms into something. I feel like that's sort of what this is too, because we've seen the people of Dardanelle and Atkins and Pottsville and just area schools. They always have a lot of pride in what they do and what they've done and how their school is this and that. And then it usually does come down to where they'll play a game or something. And so you have some people who are like, you know what? Why not make this a formal thing? Why not raise some money? Why don't we make this a community event? And that's exactly what we have to. I think it's a great idea, and I know it'll be another success.
It's definitely $2,000 that they've raised last year to do to help both Atkins and Pottsville athletic programs. It's going to be another good event this year. Chris Burke, he's got a good career in event planning if he just feels the need. He puts together poker tournaments and poker nights all the time. I'm always getting texts about playing ball here or there, doing something like that. It's funny that this event came out of some trash talk. He said he was talking with Terrence Bobo, and they were just talking trash about how we're going to beat you like we always did type thing. And we play. it's a little bit of a pickup ball, and then it turned into this event. So I was telling them, Weldon and these guys before, I would love to play, a Clarksville versus somebody alumni game, but I don't think we could do it because there would be fights. There would be just drama. If you played Dardanelle, it would probably be a little less drama, and it'd probably be a lot more competitive because Dardanelle's got some guys that can still play right now. If you played Ozark, there would be fistfights on the court. So I'm just glad that Atkins and Pottsville can do it without, And I saw a couple times last year where guys were just like, I remember you from high school, and I didn't like you then, I don't like you now. But they were civil. I'm not sure we could pull that off. We're not as well adjusted as some of these guys.
Now I heard the women's game last year got a little bit of a little friction going on. Is that true?
It was a little rough. Well, I mean, you know how women play basketball.
No, Mark, tell me. How do they play?
Badly for one, but no, I'm just joking. UConn women are really good. That's about it. But no, the Pottsville and Atkins ladies, man, they're not quite as agile as they used to be. Mm-hmm. So, you got folks falling on people, and, they don't like that. I'm standing here trying to shoot, and you just trip all over me. They just, get off me type stuff.
No.
Yeah, it was fun to watch though. It was a close game.
It
was one of those. They're about to throw down, and there's a loose ball, and they both dive for it, and it's a jump ball.
Kids, cover your eyes.
Seriously, Mama's about to scratch somebody's eyes out over there. Oh Lord, I'm never gonna get invited back to the Atkins Pottsville game. Saturday, 5 o'clock. I'm gonna hit a break. But we hope you will go to the Atkins Pottsville alumni basketball game. Atkins High School, Saturday night, 5 o'clock, and I'll be there with bells on. You'll see me shooting a half-court shot, just showing them how it's done.
There you go.
I don't even know. Maybe I'll fund the scholarship with the $1,000 I'm going to win from the minute to win it. I'll just do it.
Yeah, you could.
You think I won't?
Hey.
I think I might. If I actually could make myself get out there on the court, I think I could do it. I'm not saying I would, but I think I could.
Oh, you can do it.
I mean, all right, we got plenty of stuff left on the Sports Blitz. We got some SEC football, some NFL, some NBA, Tiger Woods, and Jimmy Dykes, spring football, lots of stuff on Hog Talk here in just a little bit on the Sports Blitz. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz. It's Wednesday, second segment here of the Sports Blitz. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios. Got some local sports out of the way, so now we can look at the wire. Some good stuff happening over the weekend. You've got the biggest news, obviously, the Final Four in NCAA men's basketball. You got Saturday at 5:09 tip between Florida and UConn, the 1 overall, Florida, and Connecticut, who is probably the surprise of the tournament so far, making it to the Final Four. And then the nightcap at 7:49, 8 seed Kentucky, 2 seed Wisconsin. And the winners obviously are going to play. A lot of us, predicting a SEC final. I've heard a couple people that agreed with my Monday call of Florida, Kentucky in the finals. But honestly, if Florida didn't make it, I'd be surprised. If Kentucky didn't make it because Wisconsin stayed hot, I wouldn't be as surprised.
Yeah. I think the Kentucky-Wisconsin game is really intriguing to me. You have, really two different teams. You have, Kentucky, a team of young future NBA players. Wisconsin, you may get an NBA player or so from there at the most, but their offense is versatile. We know about Frank Kaminsky. We know, they can flat out shoot the ball. Kentucky, absolute huge inside. They have about 4 6'10" to 7-foot guys, even though Cauley Stein won't play. Marcus Lee. How about this? This guy scored 10 points since January. Scored 10 points in the first half against Michigan. Oh, yeah, he was a McDonald's All-American. He just hadn't played all year. It's like, we lose our 7-foot center. We got to replace him with a McDonald's All-American. Oh,
tough life.
It is just such a tough life with the Big Blue Nation. But that's going to be a good one. Florida and UConn's interesting to me, and here's why. I think Florida's the better team. I don't think there's any question about it. But one thing I don't like about Florida is they don't put people away. You look at their game against Albany. Albany was within 5 with 10 minutes to go in the game, 16 seed. You look at Pittsburgh, they were within 5 or 6 points for much of that game. And even though Florida, they were dominating the turnovers, they were dominating the glass, they were dominating all the statistical categories, you looked up on the scoreboard and they were only up by a few points. And so I think when you look at a team like UConn, I think Napier is going to struggle against Florida, percentage-wise. I think he's going to go into the last 2 minutes like 4 out of 16 from the field. But when Florida should be up by 15 and they're only up by 5 in that situation, all Napier has to do is get hot for a few minutes and UConn's right in the game. I think Florida wins it, but I think they're going to let UConn hang around because that's what they do on the scoreboard. They let people hang around, and that's a little bit scary for me as a Florida picker, but I think Florida gets it done in the end. I'm going to go with Kentucky on the other side for right now and say an SEC final with you.
Well, looking at UConn and Florida, the more I think about it, the more Shabazz Napier is a baller. He is going to be a good pro. He's smooth. He can just go. So I can see him keeping UConn in the game. But you just look. I was looking at ESPN yesterday, and they were talking about the most complete team. And you just look from top to bottom at what Florida can bring to the table. You almost forget about a guy like Scotty Wilbekin, who is the SEC Player of the Year, when you see guys like Patrick Young, who looks like freaking Hercules, and all these
Prather.
You get Prather. I mean, just all Walker, lots of guys who can just go. And I think at least one of those two, and maybe even 2 or 3 of them, will team up on Napier to kind of keep them at bay. I can see Florida winning that one by double digits. But like you said, it does kind of worry me that they let teams stay around. Yeah. But they choke you out, man. They're like a boa constrictor. They just like slowly choke you to death. And it's like they have ice in their veins. They don't care that the game's close at the end. Obviously Arkansas should have beaten them, but they just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And they weather the storm of the crazy atmosphere at Bud Walton, and they weather the storm of Arkansas hitting 10 threes. Yeah. And they do all that they can do to stay in the game, and then they go ahead and win it. And I think what they'll do to UConn is going to be similar to what they've done to those other teams. They'll just grind them out and win at the end, 10+.
But what's concerning about that, though, is if this were the NBA, I'd feel a lot better about it because you're playing a 7-game series. The better team's going to win.
That's true.
It only takes one night. It takes one time for Florida to not close at the end. It takes one time for UConn just to make a few shots at the end. All it takes is one night for it to happen. That's my concern. 7-game series, I'm taking Florida in 5 if that's what it comes down to. It's strange to watch them dominate people in every facet of the game except on the scoreboard. That's just weird to me. Yep. Pittsburgh and Albany. And UCLA was a talented team, but even all these teams were within 5 or 6 points the last few minutes, and they did go ahead and close them out and make a run. I just wish Florida would blow people out. That's all I'm saying. But I think they'll beat UConn. I just think it'll be where Napier will be cold. They'll suffocate him most of the game. And then if he can make some late shots, they'll have a chance. If not, Florida will win by about 8 points.
And look, you and I both picked Florida to win the national championship, so we expect them to win this game. But if I were going to go with the Florida's MO sort of coming back to bite them, I'd be more likely to say that's going to happen on Monday night in the national championship game, because either Kentucky or Wisconsin, both of those teams are skilled enough, have been there enough to see and to be, with all the talent that Kentucky's got, which I'm predicting them to win. I could see them, taking advantage of a little lapse from Florida. I'm hoping that the Gators will just go ahead and win it because I predicted them to do it, and I'll get second in all my bracket pools because somehow I can't win anymore. But thank you, Arizona, for losing, because if they had won,
I needed Arizona to win too, and I think with Wisconsin or Kentucky against Florida, I just think that game's going to be a dogfight back and forth. I mean, I think Florida's going to be in for a battle from the opening tip all the way through the end. I mean, they may get a little bit of a lead on those teams, but I think Kentucky would be a down to the wire even game. I think Wisconsin would be something similar. They played earlier this year, although Florida had suspensions and they were dealing with their injuries and stuff when they played earlier. So I think that'd be a game where it's more of an even match. I don't think UConn's an even match. I just think UConn will hang around. I think the championship game will be one where it's just buckle up for 40 minutes. These teams are going back and forth. So it's going to be a fun Final Four. I guess Wisconsin, UConn would be sort of the worst scenario in terms of watchability. But I don't expect that. I think at least one of the SEC teams gets in, and I think if that's the case, it'll be a fun Monday night.
So Wisconsin, Kentucky. If all things go to what I expect, Kentucky, it would be a dang shame for them to have come this far, losing 10 games this year, and being up and down, and then the talent sort of coming out, coming to the forefront, bringing freaking 6 men off the bench that are 7th, 8th, 9th men off the bench that are McDonald's All-American. For them to finally get it together and then get to the Final Four and lose in that way, I don't know. Wisconsin's a tough team. They're the embodiment of tough as far as the teams that are left, and they're well coached. There's so many different things you could say positive about Wisconsin, but like I've said a million times, you line up the two teams. If they're both equal, I take the best player. I think Kentucky might have 4 of the 5 best players.
Yeah,
I
mean, and I think I think it'll be the Kentucky-Wisconsin game. I've been thinking about this. I think it'll be one of those deals where Wisconsin will hit shots. I think Wisconsin will get a lead, but I think they're going to wear Wisconsin down in the end. I think they're going to go on a run because they're just destroying the offensive glass, because Wisconsin has some size, but it's not girthy physical size. It's more like finesse, stretch four type size. And so I think Wisconsin, I think they'll be in the game. I think they'll hit shots. I think they'll make Kentucky call timeout after an 8-9-0 run. But as the game goes on, I think the strength and physicality of Kentucky will be too much. Wisconsin's legs are going to go, and they won't be able to hit as many shots late in the game. I expect Kentucky to win sort of a wear-down game over a Wisconsin team.
And see, that's one of the only worries that I have as we head to break. I'm afraid that if one of those teams is going to get worn down, that Kentucky's not as well suited for that as Wisconsin is, as far as, you've watched Big Ten basketball. Sometimes it can be brutal. 44-42 final score. I mean, not literally, but low scoring, grinded out type games. And with the young talent that Kentucky has, those guys are AAU players. They want to play up and down in 77 games a day. They want to score 100 points every night. It just seems to me like if one team's going to get frustrated with the grinded out type game. Now Kentucky's proven in the NCAA tournament that they can do that.
They've won games in the 60s.
They have won, slow type games. I feel like Kentucky may not be as well suited for that type of game. You look at Wisconsin's stats, they're just not. They're not going to blow you away. And Kentucky's a team that could score 100 on any night. So
Wisconsin's not going to just bog the game down either. When Wisconsin scored with Oregon, I mean, Oregon's one of the high-flying teams of the country, and Wisconsin outshot them. I mean, they don't want to run, but they can get in the 80s. They scored 100 points this year. They scored 90.
Do you think Wisconsin's going to try to run against Kentucky?
No, I don't.
Signing their death warrant.
It's not a run. It's not about running. It's about more so pace, and your half-court offense. I think Wisconsin's going to take shots when they're there. They're not going to try to work it down to 10 seconds like they do back in the day, 10 seconds till they shoot. I think they're going to take shots. I think if the game has some pace to it, they're fine. It's almost like the Spurs in Miami. It's not like the Spurs want to run up and down at Miami, but we saw the Spurs were comfortable playing at a little bit quicker of a pace, even though they couldn't match Miami athletically. They were still more comfortable with a little bit of a quicker pace. I think that's kind of how Wisconsin is.
And this is kind of where, in looking at their numbers, like Weldon said, these aren't your older brothers, Wisconsin Badgers. These guys score 73 points a game. Kentucky only averages about 76. 3 points a game, not that big a deal. Kentucky fifth in the country in rebounds, 41 a game, and Wisconsin. Let's see here, they're 261st in the country in rebounding.
That's
so there's where Kentucky,
Yeah.
like you said, has the big advantage there, where they can take advantage of their athleticism and size on the boards. It's going to be an interesting Final Four game. I've got Kentucky and Florida in the finals.
Me too.
We'll have a little bit more to talk about on Monday. As who knows? Maybe we're back in here Monday talking about the most boring national
Wisconsin
championship
and
game in history. But if my bracket is anything to base your opinion on, you should probably go with the opposite of what I say, because my bracket has been poop. We're going to talk about Deshaun Jackson, some other wire-related topics right after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
For those watching right now via RiverValleyLeader.com, I just want to clarify that yesterday's stories about the Aquatic Center, the Convention Center, and the Golden Lobster, they were all April Fool's jokes. They were all not really happening.
No.
Now,
I read it.
I've seen, I read it on the internet.
I read it, yeah.
I've seen people who thought it was funny, who got the joke. I've seen people who said, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat there, and I can't wait to swim there." And look, we are a reputable news source. We do give real news, but April Fools, we had to take the chance to just kind of jab at the community a little bit, just to be a little funny. Yeah. And I think they were great jokes. I think they were funny, and the majority of people understood. But I've heard people arguing, and we've heard a couple of different people who were arguing about when this restaurant or this convention center, or this aquatic center was coming to town. They're not. At all in the way that we wrote them in the stories. Now, there probably will be an aquatic center at some point. Right. There probably will be a convention center at some point. I can assure you it's not going to be in the old Pizza Hut. And the aquatic center, if you look at the picture, it's not going to be 4 times the size of the whole square there on Main Street. Like, if you look at it, like the picture, you've got the courthouse right here, and then you've got the aquatic center that is like. They would have to tear down businesses and stuff that've been there 100 years. They'd have to tear down half the city and shut down Main Street and reroute it. I mean, we thought it was ridiculous enough that nobody would believe it, but apparently people did. So it was funny. But
I was hoping we could have the Brightest Stars banquet at the Golden Lobster.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was the plan
back
for
there
next
in the
year.
meeting room, man.
Yeah,
that would have been perfect.
But
at the Pizza Hut
Convention Center,
we could only
better.
fit 50 in there, though.
And then you get the Golden Lobster to cater it. And the beautiful thing about this is there's not a lot of debate about what's going to be on the menu, because we know what the menu at the Golden Lobster.
Lobster, chocolate fountain,
and sweet tea. And maybe some kind of bread product, So, hey.
Oh, gosh. All right, so I'm writing a status right now about that. Welcome back into the Sports Blitz. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter here in the Cogswell Motors studios. Breaking news from the other day. This hold on to your hats here. This will knock your hat in the creek. Andrew Wiggins is going pro.
Yeah.
I can't believe that Andrew Wiggins, Kansas All-American, we talked about this on Monday, is going to go pro. He's going to leave his final 3 years of eligibility. And, like we said Monday, the first clue probably should have been that he was honored with the seniors on Senior Day, and he talked about in the past tense about his career before the NCAA tournament even started.
Yeah.
So he's going pro, and he's going to be a lottery pick. That's the shocker of the day.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to monitor who does decide to go pro. Haven't heard from, obviously, Julius Randle and the Kentucky guys are still playing. You hadn't heard much from Jabari Parker. No. A lot of people are talking about how he's waffling. He's trying to decide one way or the other on what he's going to do. He's going to be a lottery pick if he comes out.
Yeah.
If he stays, good for him. If he comes out, that's not going to be a big shocker to anybody. So we'll see about that. And then we talked about.
Well, I was going to say another interesting group, and we're not talking as much about the Michigan guys, Stauskas and Glenn Robinson. I think they're kind of thinking right now that we'll probably hear something from them in the next week or so.
That'd be another big bunch of news there. I think Johnny O'Bryant from LSU's gone. Yeah. There's some other folks. There were some people, Nick Mason, a good friend of the show, come on here before, and he talked about how a couple guys from the Razorbacks may be gone. And then one of them, I think, is going to be gone, not of his own choice. And I think there might be some others that talk about going on to the next level. So we've got
next level.
Well, I don't know what that level's going to be for them. It could be the whole basketball league over here at Tech for a couple of them.
They may enter the draft. I hear the military is looking. That's about the only draft I can see them going.
We got a caller on the line. I hadn't heard from Corey Williams in a little while, but we got a caller on the line here. Corey, what's going on, man?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, I thought you said Corey Williams. You said Old School Baller. There's Old School Baller on the line. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Oh, not too much. Just misinterpreting your name for Maddie. How's it going?
Well, let's get back to the pressing subject on most people's mind, the Final Four. Just say the season ended. I'd like to know both of you guys the choice for Coach of the Year. Just say it ended today. And do you think how good of a job do you think Calipari's done with what he's had? And I think Kentucky's the most talented team that's playing this year. And how they played so poorly early in the season, and they're playing so well this year. The talent's there. I tell you, the ingredient there, it's there now that wasn't there earlier, and that's the same thing with the Razorbacks. Confidence. Confidence is the key. The boys are playing with confidence. And we never did establish any confidence up there, no consistency. But Calipari stayed with his game plan, how he brought those boys along. and they're playing fantastic now. If I was a Wildcat fan, I would be totally ecstatic. And I mean, I'm going to be disappointed if we don't have all SEC NC. But I certainly think Calipari's did an excellent job. And I'm still carrying, I can't get it off my mind, this Joe Foley issue around. I cannot believe that I don't know that he got snubbed, but I don't, from what I hear, he wasn't even given a smell. And that is totally, I just can't accept that. I think he deserved a shot. His record proved it. He's paid his dues. Now we're hiring a guy that has never coached, has never been a head coach on a basketball court in the college level in his life. I mean, the man can talk basketball, there's no doubt about it. But talking and actually getting out there and installing a program, a winning program, is two different things. So I'm just going to hang up and let you guys, I don't know who's your coach of the year right now and how good a job Calipari's done.
All right, we appreciate the call, Schoolballer.
Lot to chew on.
Yeah, definitely. He always leaves us with several different things that we can talk about.
That's what I like.
I do like that. I appreciate the call. Coach of the year, you can go a bunch of different directions. Go for it.
I got to go with my man Tony Bennett. I mean, look, Virginia, yeah, they've been kind of flirting on that NCAA tournament line. They got in a couple of years ago, but for what he was able to do, he won the ACC regular season and won the ACC tournament against Duke, against Carolina, NC State, all the tournament teams they had. He was still able to win that league, get them to the Sweet 16. It's Virginia.
That's
true.
It's
Virginia basketball. He did it with a unique brand of basketball as far as his defense and the way they suffocated people and the way they played on offense patiently. Joe Harris, one of the better underrated players in the country, in my opinion. What Tony Bennett's done at Virginia, turned that program around. Remember, the Dave Lato days and then that time period, of course. Now Dave is on Frank Haith's staff at Missouri, but Tony Bennett's been a wonderful coach. You go back to when he was at Washington State and they played that same pack line defense. You remember Derek Lowe, the long hair point guard he used to have, and he's done the same thing at Virginia. I got to give it up to Tony Bennett, number 1 seed, Sweet 16, conference tournament, and regular season champion coach.
It'd be hard to argue with Bennett being the coach of the year. I could go one of two directions. I could go with the team that I didn't expect to be there in Virginia, or I could go with a couple teams that, man, the expectations were up here and they lived up to them for most of the year. Florida, if you gave Billy Donovan, I would not argue at all. If Billy Donovan 32-2 going into the tournament, now in the Final Four, the number 1 overall seed for a reason. They've just been incredible throughout the season. If you gave him the Coach of the Year award, I wouldn't be surprised. And then Wichita State and Marshall going undefeated through the regular season with that schedule. Wasn't much of a schedule, but with that team who went to the Final Four last year, get the 1 seed. They ran into, obviously Kentucky's not bad. They're still going in the Final Four. A lot of people expecting them to go to the national championship game, perhaps even win it. They finally turned it on. I think if Wichita State was in any other bracket aside from Florida's, they could be sitting where Kentucky is right now.
Yeah.
So they got to just a rough spot there facing Kentucky. If you gave it to one of those 3 coaches, I wouldn't be upset at all. I'm kind of with you on Bennett, but Billy Donovan, I'd be hard pressed not to look at that.
And you made a great point, and my pick doesn't reflect this point, but I do think it's something that should be considered more. We don't have to always give the award to a coach who overachieves. I mean, yeah, most of the time you will, but there are a lot of years where I felt like Nick Saban in football should be given Coach of the Year. But you're like, well, he's got 5 stars, they're undefeated, no big deal. But there are some years where a Coach K or Roy Williams or Tom Izzo, there are times where they deserve consideration, but we know very rarely will they get it unless they have a team full of freshmen and they go to the Final Four or something. But I think sometimes these big program, high expectation teams need to be considered for Coach of the Year from time to time.
Definitely, and it is kind of a shame that teams like Alabama in football can't quite get that recognition. I think they're crying over their national championship trophies too. They don't care too much. But Billy Donovan could have number 3 here.
3, yeah.
In the next couple of days. So
4 or 5.
We'll see if he ends up with the. It's probably going to be Bennett. You're probably right on that. And then the Joe Foley situation. I'm one that I was on record saying I thought that they ought to give him a call. As far as X's and O's and proven track record, 2 national championships here at Tech. Go to Euler and take them to the tournament. And, we talked about this before. If you can do that, you can pretty much do about anything you want. But one thing, X's and O's wise, Joe Foley is the guy. What I think Jeff Long has proved that, and I'll talk a little bit more about this after the break, what Jeff Long has proven that he wants to do is he wants to make a huge splash nationally. He does want the X's and O's, and I guess he believes that Jimmy Dykes can win games on the court.
Right.
But when you look at Jimmy Dykes' salary and half of it coming from the rubber chicken dinner circuit where he's going to Harrison and Searcy and Fort Smith and all these Razorback Athletic Club events, and he's getting people fired up about women's basketball. He's selling tickets and he's getting checks from these donors. Half of his salary is from doing those types of events in the circuit. That speaks to me that he sort of is being relied upon to make money in that way.
Right.
And Jeff Long kind of running this like a business. He couldn't get a bigger national splash than Jimmy Dykes.
No, and I think the thing with Jimmy, and Jimmy said this in his press conference, the X's and O's part is the easy part. That's the easiest thing about coaching. I mean, you learn it, you put it in. And Jimmy Dykes, I know it's been a long time, but he does have coaching experience. I don't think a lot of people realize that. At Kentucky, at Arkansas under Eddie Sutton, he's been at Oklahoma State, he's been an NBA scout, he's got basketball experience. Plus, people you don't understand this, but summer camp. So he's coaching with Bill Self and John Calipari and Jay Billis, and all these guys are coaching clinics and camps together. And when you have a camp, you're coaching players and you're doing team, 4-on-4, 5-on-5s, and you're coaching. I know it's different than the big stage in college basketball game, but Jimmy's not just a guy who talks about basketball walking off the street. He does have a basketball background more than just sitting up there analyzing on ESPN. And so I think it's great the way his contract is structured, because part of the issue with women's basketball is that there is no brand awareness. And so I think to have it in his contract to where, yes, part of what you do is raise the brand and make people aware of who you are, I think that should be part of his deal. And if you know Jimmy, he's got a lot of energy, a lot of passion. He can sell you on just about anything. You know that by hearing him do games. I think that's a perfect fit. So the thing with Joe Foley, and I don't know what old school ballers' perspective is individually, but I know for the most part, you have people who are outraged over this hire who have no idea about anybody but Joe Foley. Like, Joe Foley's the guy they've heard of, therefore he's the only guy they want just because he's the only guy they know. Yeah, Joe Foley can coach, and I think he should have been considered. I'm not sure if he was or wasn't, but I think a lot of people are outraged over it who don't even care about women's basketball, and that's been my issue.
Well, that's true. If you're not going to put money in the poke, as far as it's concerned, U of A is concerned, they don't care what you think. If you're not going to go to a women's basketball game, then the only thing that there is left is can they win?
Right.
Because if Joe Foley was to take the Lady Backs to the national or to the tournament and they lose in the first round, or they go, if they go Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, win it all, that type of thing, that's a huge deal, and people would notice. But if he just takes them to the tournament and they lose, okay, if Jimmy Dykes can't do that at least, then maybe people have a reason to get mad about it. But at this point, what Jimmy Dykes is going to do is raise the brand awareness. He's going to put some butts in the seats. He's going to raise some money and at least make women's basketball less of a money guzzler. It's just the way it is. There are several, basketball and football provide the money for everything else.
Yeah.
And baseball to an extent. I think baseball can sustain itself and make a little bit of money, but women's sports, all these other sports don't make any money. So, if they can at least sustain themselves, it saves some money. It makes Jeff Long look better. And Jimmy Dykes can, the ESPN machine is going to pump for Jimmy Dykes. He knows the people. He knows the way to get the program exposed.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's I don't know. You could have done worse than Jimmy Dykes. Let's put it that way. If you go with Joe Foley, I wouldn't have been upset. I'm not upset with Jimmy Dykes.
Yeah, I think Joe Foley would have been a great choice. Do we have somebody on?
I think we got Jason on the line. What's going on, Jason?
Go ahead, Jason?
Oh man, y'all just keep on. I'm just listening to y'all. I'm enjoying y'all listening to y'all's conversation there. You're talking about Foley against Dykes. I think both of them probably would have been a good hire. I don't think you could have went wrong with either one of them. But he did pick Dykes, and I think Dykes is going to be able to get it done. Like I said on Monday, I think he can get us to the tournament on a year in basis. I just think the talent in Arkansas, the women's, girls in Arkansas, I think there's enough talent in Arkansas to get Arkansas into the tournament.
Yeah, I agree.
I think so, too.
I could see, I don't know, I wasn't there, obviously, and I don't know Joe Foley personally, but I could see how that, if he did get an interview, how that process went. It's one of those things where he walk in and, you know who I am, I know who you are, this is what I've done, this is what I can do as a coach, and Jeff Long may have been impressed. But what Jimmy Dykes probably did is probably a lot like what Eli Craner did to Clarksville. You get all these coaches who've done a lot of good stuff,
right,
and then you got a guy who comes in with a plan and who is, lights up the room and who wins the press conference,
right,
and who can just excite people, and right then that this is the guy that is going to get things going the right direction, and he just wows you.
Yeah,
I think Jimmy Dykes probably went in the interview and just wowed.
That's a really good point, because you have a guy like Joe Foley with his credentials. Yeah, if you're Joe Foley, do you really feel the need to, I'll just say it, lower yourself? And in his mind, it would be lower yourself to have to sell yourself to them. You're Joe Foley. Their Arkansas women's basketball has been kind of flailing the last 15 years or so. They need to be selling themselves to you. That's kind of what you're thinking, because Joe Foley's resume in recent years is a lot stronger than the Arkansas women's basketball is in recent years. But then if you have somebody like a Jimmy Dykes who wants the job, who wants to aggressively pursue it, who wants to sell you on what he's going to do, it probably makes a different impression on you. But Mark, Jason, I want to look at this, because it's something, and I hear people talk, and it hasn't been huge, but as the football team goes on the way they're going basketball, you hear a lot of people questioning Jeff Long. Yeah, Jeff Long's been successful from a financial standpoint. You can make a very strong case that in the end, all that matters. That is what absolutely matters. But, it kills me, because the same thing happened with Nolan Richardson. Well, Nolan Richardson, feelings weren't that great when he was ran out of town. But, Arkansas has been flat out terrible in basketball. So guess what? Nolan, the glory days, he was such this and that. You didn't hear that in 2002. Like when Frank Broyles was ushered out, Frank was so old school. He ran a good old boys club. Jeff Long, he's the new guy. He runs it like a business. That's how it's got to be. Arkansas struggled in football and basketball now. Now all of a sudden, Frank did do this, and he did get them in the SEC. And hey, I tell you what, Frank did this and that. What do you guys think about the athletic department dynamic, and Jeff Long, the pressure on him to get men's basketball and football going again?
Jason, I don't know about you. I'll let you have this. I think it's got to be a healthy mix. You can't just tank and not make any money, but you can't tank and not win either. You got to be in the middle. And obviously, Jeff Long's not an idiot. He hired the guys he thought were the best, and at least at some point, we thought these were all pretty decent hires.
We did.
I'm expecting that it's all going to get turned around. And Jeff Long, to me, I wouldn't rather have anybody else as an athletic director. Jason, your thoughts?
And I agree with you. I think, in the paper on Sunday, there was actually an ad taken out in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette sports page, that I guess some big booster had put in there saying, is Jeff Long, is he qualified for all these hot raises and stuff, and is he qualified to be the chairman or whatever he is for the championship series now? And, there was a pretty big little article, saying, is he the problem now because of, Anderson's not making the tournament. Bielema hasn't won an SEC game. Van Horn, which he didn't even really hire Van Horn. He didn't have anything to do with that. But, he was saying, the baseball team's been struggling. And, they were preseason number 1 last year. But if you look at the hires that Long has brought in, you look at Anderson. Anderson's won pretty much wherever he's been. He turned UAB around and he turned Missouri around. He got Missouri to the Elite Eight. I think that's the first time that's ever happened in school history. You look at Bielema. On paper, going to 3 straight Rose Bowls, winning the amount of games that he did in the 7 years that he was with Wisconsin. I think you look at both of those hires and think, man, these are the coaches that Arkansas needs to get in place to turn these programs around. And I think Long thought that too. Now, back to Jimmy Dykes, I think he's looking at Jimmy Dykes and saying, hey, I think this guy has got enough passion for the Razorbacks, that he knows that much about basketball in general, that he's going to be able to turn it around. So I think, I don't think it's all should be on Long, because I think the hires that he's had since in his tenure at Arkansas have been really good hires, in my opinion. Every one of them has been successful where they, at the previous stop before they got here.
I think he likes the big splash. I think he likes, at the same time, a safe pick. You know Mike Anderson is coming home. You know he's taking
Right.
teams to the Elite Eight. You know Brett Bielema has been to the Rose Bowl 3 straight times. You know he wants to just help his staff, which when you pay the staff and you get a better coaching staff altogether, your team eventually is going to get better. I think that Jeff Long is smart about the fact that he sort of wants the safe hire, but he also wants to make a big splash. I mean, it remains to be seen whether or not these things are going to work, but I think that I just think Jeff Long's doing a good job.
I just think it's funny how the perception of somebody's resume is when they get the job and then a few years in. Like, you had some people questioning Bielema's Big Ten record because Ohio State was ineligible one year, but for the most part it was 3 straight Rose Bowls, Big Ten champions. Now it's like, well, it was in the Big Ten, and Ohio State, they weren't eligible that one year. Like Mike Anderson, Elite Eights, Big 12 tournament titles, all this great stuff. Now we look at the same resume 3 years into a non-tournament tenure at Arkansas, and it's like, well, Missouri was never that consistent, and Kansas still dominated the conference. And the year he went to the Elite Eight, they weren't able to do this and that, and he didn't coach well enough to beat UConn to get them into the Final Four. And his teams, they don't rebound well. All this stuff, nothing's changed factually. It's just the way we look at it changes now because he hadn't made the tournament in 3 years. That's always been funny to me.
Yeah, definitely. Jason, you got anything else to add, man?
No, I just got a quick question for y'all. Y'all was talking about, who's the head coach or who should be the national coach of the year and all that stuff. What do y'all think about Billy Donovan? Just to me, when somebody thinks of a big-time basketball coach, they always think of Coach K, Bill Self, Roy Williams, just name a bunch of coaches. But it seems like nobody ever puts Billy Donovan in the top-tier category, but crap, he's on the verge of winning three national championships. I just don't think he gets enough credit for what he does.
Good question.
I'm totally with you.
I'd love to get into it. I know we're running tight.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to really debate this as deeply as we probably ought to, but I'm with you guys. I think Billy Donovan deserves to be up there. You could take Roy Williams and knock him down a peg and put Billy Donovan ahead of him if you want. It wouldn't hurt my feelings at all.
Because sometimes somebody's coaching talent outweighs their overall resume. You could say the game has passed some people by. Do you think when Bob Knight coached his last game in college basketball, he was one of the top 5 coaches? And no, but obviously all time he's one of the greatest. So people do have to account for the game passing people by, and it's almost like physical talent. There is an era where you go downhill, and I'm not saying guys like Boeheim and Coach K are downhill, but just because these younger coaches don't have as many wins doesn't mean they're not coaching on the same level as they are presently.
I'm with you. All right, Jason, you good?
I'm good, man. I'll holler at you on Friday.
All right, we'll talk to you later, Jason. Jason Kilburn, doing a good job. He's wanting to talk some spring football, and we're going to talk a lot about it for just a second.
What happened to the time? I feel like I just looked up and it was almost
we are missing 3 minutes because we started a little late today, so we're going to go to 12:03. That's happening. Like it or not. But a couple things. Deshaun Jackson to the Redskins. I'm not a big Deshaun Jackson fan. The reason, if you're a guy who can catch 1,200 yards worth of passes and 9 touchdowns, and then your team cuts you, you're a problem.
That's
and I don't. And they'll let you go to a division rival. I'm not a big Deshaun fan. And then also Tiger Woods out of the Masters. That's just a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I heard Skip this morning. Skip Bayless talking about, golf will be just fine. I'm sorry.
Nope.
No, it won't. The issue is, when he watched Player and Nicholas and all those guys playing, they had multiple superstars, so you could drop one of them and be fine. You don't have multiple superstars. Rory and company, they still haven't taken the mantle. Tiger's still the star carrying that sport, so it will have an impact. As far as Deshaun Jackson goes, he's a guy who I categorize as a playmaker. And I think there's a place for playmakers and there's a place that's not for playmakers. Playmakers need to be your number 3 receiver, a guy you get the ball in his hands that can do some things. But as far as your steady, your go-to guy, your Mr. Consistency, I don't like him in that role. I think he'll make some explosive plays with RG3 and company, but can you rely on him game in and game out to be a consistent big-time target? I don't know. That remains to be seen. If they put him in just the playmaker role and they have other consistent receivers, I'm good with it. If they try to make him the guy, I don't know.
Couple other things here. Spring football is upon us, and the Razorbacks playing a little spring football right now. The spring game is April 26th, 1 o'clock, open to the public there on the Hill. I saw that somebody reported, and I'm trying to find who it was, that Alti Tenpenny, Alabama running back, formerly of North Little Rock, was arrested on a marijuana charge March 24th. He's going to appear in court April 10th at 9:30 a.m. And it looks like he's in a little bit of hot water there after news. I don't know if you saw this on ESPN where Alabama had named Derrick Henry number 1 on their depth chart, and then they got T.J. Yeldon in there, and then probably some other 5-star guy, and then they've lost a couple 5-star guys, and then they've still got Alty Tenpenny somewhere.
Yeah.
We heard rumors that Alty Tenpenny was going to transfer to Arkansas. You may not have a choice in where he goes to school next year.
Yeah, hey, look, here's a life lesson, Mark. If you're a running back and you leave the state of Arkansas to go to the state of Alabama, you get arrested. There you go. That's the new golden rule. It's been established.
Maybe you should get off the weed.
Stay off, like Stephen A. said, stay off the weed.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's probably not something we should be joking about. Well, that's exactly what we did.
But you should stay off of it.
You definitely should.
Unless you're in those states and you want to.
Or unless you've got glaucoma or something, and then you just go ahead, man. That's not a laughing matter. Spring football, though, I've heard that the Allen brothers both looking good at quarterback. Rafe Peavy needs a little bit of work. A.J. Derby, and now this is okay. I heard a statewide report yesterday from a guy on the radio, and he said that A.J. Derby looks about like he did last year. That was the nicest thing he could say. Like he couldn't just come out and say, "Yeah, A.J. Derby, he's still not very good."
I mean, look, we need some depth at linebacker. We need help on defense. Why don't we just make the inevitable move already?
Honestly, you might ought to just make him like an honorary coach for a year. Use the scholarship for somebody who's actually going to help. I'm just being that's as nice as I can be.
We almost beat Rutgers.
That is as nice as I can be. I would like to see A.J. Derby succeed as a human being.
Oh, that's all you can say, huh? That's all you can say.
I mean, I got nothing for him as a Razorback. He's just awful. And then I've seen that Dewalt Mitchell, he's got some decent accuracy close up, but I've heard that on the deep ball it comes undone and he can't throw the deep ball.
And that's usually it's the opposite too.
Yeah.
Usually that deep ball, the guys can kind of lay it out there. Michael Vick back in the day could lay it out, but it was the intermediate stuff they struggled. But he's the opposite. That's strange, It
was a little weird. And then I read something on, I guess it was Whole Hog Sports, about the wide receivers looking good early on. Look, spring football, we've talked about this more than once, and Jason just made a joke about it a little while ago via text. He said something about how we shouldn't be talking spring football because we made so much fun of it. You're going to hear nothing from coaches but sunshine and rainbows. Yeah. Rick Schaefer speak. It's just absolutely positive about everybody, and it's just not always that way. Arkansas was 3-9 last year, so that everything's not great. Everything's not awesome, but the wide receivers there's a lot of good talk coming out of the hill. Take that for what it's worth.
Rick Schaefer speak, but you can't have that without a good Rick Schaefer haircut. That's what I'm getting. Next time I go to the barber, I'm gonna tell him to hook me up with a Rick Schaefer.
Hook me up with the Lloyd Christmas. That's what I'm looking for. All right, we got to get out of here. That's all the time we have got for today. We're a little bit over, so appreciate you sticking with us, and we'll hope you'll listen on Wednesday. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long. We'll be back at 11 o'clock, rivervalleyleader.com on Friday with more Sports Blitz.